It's good to have you with us. I'm Daniel Chef, Arirang News. Let's start with the headlines. The number of confirmed MERS cases continues to increase daily in Korea, and the government has been criticized for its inefficient initial response to the deadly virus. President Park Geun-hye rejected a revised parliamentary bill that would empower lawmakers to revise government enforcement ordinances, saying it could paralyze her administration's ability to run state affairs. And the leaders of Korea and China hailed the signing of a free trade agreement between the two nations as a historic milestone, further deepening their strategic partnership. The Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS, outbreak has many people in and out of Korea concerned. 3 more cases were confirmed early Monday, so now the tally stands at 18, with 682 people under quarantine. For more, let's connect to our Kim Hyun-bin standing by at the news center. Hyun-bin?
Well, Daniel, at this point, the best news is that all confirmed cases are secondary infections from the first patient. Now, according to Korea's Ministry of Health and Welfare, 2 of the 3 most recent cases stayed in the same hospital ward as patient number 1. The third is the son of a patient from the same hospital, whose case was confirmed earlier. They're all over the age of 40, and now 2 of them are at a designated hospital, and the third is under home quarantine. Of the 18 confirmed patients, 1 is in critical condition, while 5 are considered unstable.
Well, Hyun-bin, what about the patient who traveled to China? Can you give us the updates on his condition and also the measures the Chinese authorities are taking right now?
Well, he initially seemed to be doing quite well after being taken to a hospital in Guangdong province, but China's Xinhua news agency reported Monday his condition has deteriorated after he developed a high fever. Now, more doctors have been sent to the hospital to aid with his treatment. Chinese health officials have isolated some 64 people who came in contact with him, but are having trouble tracing more than 10 people who boarded the buses he took to Guangdong. Now, to prevent more MERS patients from leaving the country on Monday, the South Korean government placed a temporary travel ban on anyone under quarantine. Now, Korea's health ministry said this week will be critical because the 14-day incubation period from the first patient ends on Wednesday. So we'll see if MERS spreads or subside here in Korea. Now, ministry officials have vowed to pursue all government and civil-level efforts to prevent diphtheria infections. But, Daniel, that may not be enough to calm public fear and anger over the government's tardy and inefficient initial response to MERS. Back to you.
Thank you for those updates, Hyun-bin. Moving on, in addition to containing the MERS virus, the government and lawmakers are trying to curb public fear and misinformation. For more, let's turn to our Kim Hyun-gil.
On Monday, Health and Welfare Minister Moon Young-pyo said the government is mobilizing all its resources to prevent the spread of MERS in Korea.
This week will be a critical juncture in determining whether MERS will continue to spread or subside. I apologize for causing anxiety among our citizens.
The government and the ruling Saenuri Party agreed to work together on enhancing monitoring systems and on increasing cooperation with foreign countries to confirm virus variations. The rapid spread of MERS in Korea has incited social media rumors over the hospitals involved, as well as misinformation about symptoms. According to the ruling party, these rumors reveal the government's weak initial response.
Many people don't even know the exact symptoms of MERS, and misinformation is spreading quickly in cyberspace. This shows the government's inexperience and the public's lack of trust.
President Park Geun-hye also called on government agencies and the Joint Task Force to enhance preventative measures and demanded a thorough inspection of passengers arriving in and departing from Korea. In addition to fighting the MERS outbreak, Korean officials have been contending with a live anthrax sample mistakenly sent to a U.S. airbase in Korea. Health Minister Moon promised to track down anyone who may have been exposed to the bacteria. He said ensuring the safety of the Korean people was the government's top priority, but stressed the anthrax incident posed no risk to the public. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Let's now move on to other stories. A bill giving the National Assembly power to request changes to presidential orders is at the center of a dispute between the presidential office and the political parties. Our Choi Yu-sun gives us the latest.
At Monday's meeting of senior secretaries, President Park said the controversial bill could paralyze her administration's ability to run state affairs.
국회가 번번이 수정을 요구하게 되면 정부의 정책 추진은 악영향을 받을 수밖에 없고 결국 그 피해는 고스란히 국민들에게 그리고 우리 경제에 돌아가게 될 것입니다.
Last Friday, the presidential office urged lawmakers to review the bill, arguing it could violate the constitutional division of powers, including the judicial right to review legislation and executive rights. The new legislation appeared last week with the main opposition party negotiating to link it to the public pension reform bill. The opposition side hopes to use the bill to request revisions to the ordinance concerning an independent probe into the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. The president's latest remarks indicate she may veto the bill, especially if a request made through it would require mandatory action from the administration. Lawmakers are still at odds on that aspect of the bill. The ruling party's floor leader says it wouldn't require mandatory action and therefore won't violate the Constitution. The main opposition party says the bill would require mandatory action, then criticize the president for declaring a war against the legislature. The ball is now in the Assembly's court. The rival parties must come to agreement on the extent of bill's powers, specifically whether or not a request to change presidential orders is just a recommendation or a directive that requires action by the administration. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
Staying on the political realm, bickering continues over a number of topics slated for the June Extraordinary Assembly session. Our Park Ji-won tells us more about the issues topping the agenda.
The confirmation hearing for Prime Minister nominee Hwang Kyo-won is expected to be the priority for the June extraordinary session. Both parties agreed to hold the confirmation hearing starting next Monday, but the two sides are already squabbling over the duration of the hearing. The ruling Senate party hopes it will be a conventional two-day process, wrapping up before June 14th, when President Park Geun-hye departs on a state visit to the United States. However, the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy has vowed to carefully assess Hwang's credentials, saying 3 days, the hearing's maximum legal duration, is not enough, and it hopes to take more time to assess the nominee. Follow-up discussions on pension reform and strengthening the national pension system are also likely to cause heated discussions. Although a controversial pension reform bill for civil servants passed last week, the bill linked to it is facing severe opposition from the presidential office. The new legislation would allow the Assembly to request changes to presidential ordinances, but the rival parties are still working out the details. Some 50 economy-related bills, including crowdfunding and service industry acts, may also lead to political wrangling. The Senate party says they are necessary to boost the economy, but the main opposition party says the bills give unfair benefits and priorities to big conglomerates while stifling small and mid-sized businesses. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
In other news, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe kicked off its Asia Conference Monday in Seoul. Attendees drew parallels between the Northeast Asian Peace and Cooperation Initiative and Europe's Intergovernmental Security Bloc. Our Hwang Sung-hee reports.
Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se called for Asian countries to increase cooperation to tackle security challenges in the region, pointing to Europe's OSCE as a good example.
The OSCE's success in building trust through confidence and security building measures has important lessons for Northeast Asia. This part of the world lacks trust as well as a regional multilateral mechanism.
With 57 member nations and 11 partner countries, the Organization for Security and Cooperation is the world's largest intergovernmental security body. Yoon said the European bloc is an inspiration for the Park Geun-hye administration's so-called Northeast Asian Peace and Cooperation Initiative, or NAPSI. In contrast to that Korea-led initiative, OSCE Secretary General Lamberto Zanier explained the European bloc began with a top-down approach where the nations sat around the table and developed the concept together.
Now we're seeing a country taking the lead and developing a concept, and then this country has to sell it to the others. So I think the problem is how do you move this forward?
While the region is mired in historical and territorial disputes, Zanier said the best way to build trust is a bottom-up approach, focusing on issues like nuclear and cybersecurity.
So you can start initiatives in these contexts, engaging the countries of the region, and then use them as building blocks to develop then and to implement what in the end will be NAPSI.
The visiting OSCE chief added that NAPSI should touch an issue of interest to all countries in the region. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Well, the UN Security Council is looking into North Korea's recent claim that it test-fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile. Pyongyang has lodged a request of its own. The regime's ambassador to the UN is pushing the council to address the joint South Korea-U.S. military drills, which the North continues to label a rehearsal for war. Our Connie Kim has the details.
Failure to hold an emergency meeting to address the South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises would prove the council is Washington's political tool. That's what Cha Sung-nam, the North Korean ambassador to the UN, wrote to the Security Council last week, according to the UN website on Sunday. Cha's letter went on to say its SLBM test firing was a legitimate form of deterrence against military threats posed by the annual joint drills. Dubbed full legal and key resolve, they took place in March and April. Pyongyang called the exercises a real nuclear war game, practice for North Korean invasion, and an effort to eliminate North Korean leadership. However, multiple diplomatic sources in Washington say North Korea didn't respond to U.S. requests for talks in May following the joint military exercises. Sources say Washington is trying to create momentum for dialogue with Pyongyang before another set of South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises scheduled for August. The allies are currently carrying out the largest ever joint anti-submarine drills in waters of South Korea's southern Jeju Island. The U.S. also recently asked the UN Security Council to investigate whether the SLBM test firing is a violation of UN resolutions, banning the regime from carrying out any ballistic missile activities. And given these tensions, a U.S.-North Korea dialogue is looking unlikely. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Shifting gears now, Korea and China officially signed an FTA this Monday. Once in effect, the pact will lead to an expansion of bilateral trade and investment and is expected to become a new cooperative platform for new growth engines. Our Kwon So-hwa has this report.
It's been 3 years since official negotiations began. Now, more doors will open for trade between Korea and China. Korea's Trade Minister Yoon Sang-jik and his Chinese counterpart Gao Hu-chang signed the agreement, expressing anticipation for the mutually beneficial pact. Within 10 years of implementation, it will lift import tariffs on almost 80% of Korean products to China and more than 70% of Chinese products to Korea. Within 20 years, more than 90% of both countries' tariffs are expected to be eliminated. The new pact will extend trade beyond manufacturing and agriculture to include service, finance, and communication sectors. According to a governmental evaluation on the effect of the Korea-China FTA, after taking effect, it's expected to raise Korea's real gross domestic product by 0.96% in 10 years and create almost 54,000 new jobs. All that's left now is an approval from both countries' legislatures, followed by a 60-day period for final adjustments before the pact will take effect, which could happen as early as this year. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
Discouraging digits in the trade realm, Korea's exports tumbled by their fastest rate in nearly 6 years in May. The Trade Ministry says the country's overall outbound shipments last month slumped 10.9% from a year earlier to $42.4 billion. And that's the biggest drop since a 20.9% drop recorded in August 2009 at the height of the global financial crisis. Exports have been slowing for 5 consecutive months due largely to oil prices and slowing growth in China. Korea's trade surplus in May expanded, though, as imports shrank at an even faster rate. Imports plunged 15.3% on year to $36 billion, meaning Korea's trade surplus was $6.3 billion. And starting tomorrow, all automated teller machines or ATMs in Korea will only accept IC cards, also known as chip cards. That means you can no longer use magnetic cards to get cash at ATMs. The move comes as the Financial Supervisory Service decided to cut off the use of magnetic cards to prevent criminals from forging credit cards to take out cash loans. The IC cards have a square-shaped chip embedded in the front, which is used to authenticate each transaction. The financial regulator says the transition will be smooth, considering chip cards already account for nearly 99.8% of domestic ATM transactions as of April this year. Magnetic cards can still be used for other purposes like in-store transactions. And that's all from us for this hour. For more, tune in at 10 p.m. Korea time. As always, thank you for watching.